It's the question that's on everybody's mind ever since these not-so-super sports have come out. That's what I'm calling this category of motorcycle, because they used to be super sports, now they're not-so-super. Can you actually compare the Suzuki GSX-8R to a real sport bike? This is a kind of a broad question that I've been getting quite a bit of, because, people say, oh, yeah, it's not a Gixxer, man. That's not a 600. That's not a 1000. I can't roll race my buddies on the highway with that thing. I'm going to get clowned on. Well, I'm actually going to ride this bike today. Tell you why you might be wrong, you might be right. There's a couple points that are correct and a couple points that are not so correct. But this beautiful Suzuki GSX-8R in the Pearl Ignite Yellow is our latest giveaway motorcycle on YamiNoob.co. Head over to the website, become a member. That's going to be your best way to get your chances locked and loaded to win this machine. You are not going to want to miss it. This thing is pretty nice. We got a lot of modification plans for this motorcycle. Going to be putting a full exhaust on this thing, swapping out the tires, maybe putting on a cruise control system, and heated grips, comfort seat, taller windscreen. Who knows how dad mode I'm going to get with this thing. So stick around. We're going to have tons of content with this motorcycle. Head over to the website, get your chances locked and loaded to win it. Now, let's jump aboard this quite lovable little bike and talk about, can you really compare it to my Gixxer, bro? My 600 would walk that thing all day, man. That's what I hear a lot of anyways. The GSX-8R is an interesting motorcycle, mostly because Suzuki's they're not really trying to bill it as like the savior to the 600 class. This is a totally new thing. So, let's back this up a little bit. Back in the day, everybody bought 600s or 1000s, right? Basically up until the 2008-2009 financial crash, everybody and their dog was taking out 0% ninja loans. That's no income, no job, no assets for you youngins out there, buying up these bikes and going out and ripping them on the highway, 600s and 1000s, right? And then the naked bikes that were available at the time, and they were basically just super sport machines that had detuned engines, and they put on handlebars on them, right? And maybe took off the fairings. Think about your Yamaha FZ6, those sort of things, right? But nowadays, the whole script is flipped, right? You start off with a naked bike, in this case a GSX-8S, a steel tubular frame motorcycle with a punchy parallel twin, nice agreeable ergonomics, and you kind of transform that into a sport bike. So we're doing it kind of backwards now. We end up in a similar-ish place with both motorcycles, but we've done it a little bit backwards. What are the drawbacks of when you do that? Well, when you take a motorcycle that was meant to be a naked bike and you turn it into a sport bike like this, well, I mean, you're missing the high-end revs. You're missing that super rigid chassis. You're missing the race-derived ergonomics. And I'll tell you what, other than that screaming inline 4, I don't miss a damn thing. Maybe it's because I'm getting a little bit older. Maybe it's because I've come to really appreciate a motorcycle that allows me to spend lots and lots of time in the saddle. I've been on this bike for about an hour today, and I'm not tired at all. I've really been enjoying myself, and the thing still looks fully fared and cool, because ergonomically, this thing could not be more different than a Gixxer 600. Let's look at this beautiful view here in Austin, Texas. How lovely spring has sprung. 2024 is a new year, boys. This is some good stuff, man. So yeah, ergonomically, this motorcycle is supremely different than a Gixxer 600. And you notice that as soon as you sit on this bike, I highly recommend, if you're able to, go to a dealership and sit on a GSX-8R and a Gixxer 600. You will see a massive difference. The two bikes almost have nothing in common except for a tail light, which I actually pointed out in my microscope video, my x-ray video that I did in the shop. They actually shared a little tail light. So what are the advantages or disadvantages of an ergonomics package that's a little bit more agreeable? And by a little bit, I mean a lot of it. It means that you can ride it all day long, you know? First of all, if this motorcycle had the GSX-R 750 engine in it, that wouldn't change how it feels on the side of the tire, the ergonomics of it. It is super comfortable to ride, right? Extremely agreeable. You can really get along with this thing. Just enjoy it, have a ton of fun, and really kind of get in that dad mode with it. Like, kind of just sit perfectly upright. To be honest, it's so upright that there's times I kind of want to ride it like I would like an adventure bike. Like, I don't really want to lean it off the side of the tire and get super aggressive and get all low with it, because it kind of feels a little awkward. It actually reminds me of a lot of a bone stock Ninja 400. It's certainly a lot wider and bigger than a bone stock Ninja 400, but I find that the ergonomics package, the pocket that I'm in right here, man, it feels a lot like that. So if you're coming off of a Ninja 400, an R3, a CF Moto 450SS, jumping into a GSX-8S is not going to feel like a huge difference, to be honest. The character and flavor of this engine too is super similar to those bikes too. You just get more, right? You just get bigger engine, bigger bike, more ample power, all that sort of thing. Now, everybody bemoans the fact that this thing doesn't have an inline 4, right? And look, I get it. I love inline 4s, man. But truthfully, unless they're like a 600 or a 650 that's tuned in a very specific way, you could never do what I'm about to do right here. I'm in third gear. Look at the pull I got out of that corner. I mean, I can keep this thing in fourth gear all through this twisty road and be completely fine. In fact, why don't I try that up here? This is labeled as a 15-mile-an-hour corner. Usually take it in second gear. Fourth gear, struggling a little bit, but then look at that, all that torque right in the middle. That's the advantage you get of a twin-cylinder bike, especially because this one's a 776cc over a 600. It actually feels way faster than a 600 where it counts, you know? And because the rev range is a bit smaller, you know, this thing only gets pretty close to 10,000 RPM. Oops, I looked at the red counter and I forgot to look at my line. That was dumb. You know, you get to use the gearbox more. The power is way more accessible. The power is pretty much always on tap with this thing. Ooh, we got some wetness here. Let's take it easy. Where'd all this water come from? The power is pretty much always on tap with this thing, right? You know, if you twist the throttle, you will get immediate actionable power with it, which is not something you can say for 600 or even a 750. You got to wait for that power a little bit. And then when the power does come, it's a whole lot all at once, and you're like, you know, 120 something horsepower. This thing only makes about 80 something horsepower, 81 horsepower, which to the speed freaks is a deplorable number. You know? Truly a deplorable number out of an 800 or 8R or something like that. And look, you got to look at the torque curve. You got to look at the whole curve, you know? You can't just look at a peak horsepower number and say, oh, that bike sucks. Because it really doesn't tell the whole story, you know? Honestly, I'm having a lot of fun on this bike. Way more than I thought I would, to be honest. I thought this thing was going to be kind of a dog. I was like, well, I'll have to kind of get a little excited about it because it's a giveaway bike. But really, I don't have to pretend with it, you know? I genuinely think this thing is very fun to ride, and I'm liking it more than a 600, especially on a road like this, you know? A road that you can actually be technical, you can use your brakes, your gas, choose your lines a little bit more carefully. It's actually really fun to use a bike like this in this kind of condition. Honestly, guys, I know you don't believe me, but a 1000 to 600, they're really not that fun unless you go out to a highway or a racetrack. In real world conditions, slow speeds, suburban conditions, even on a twisty road like this, you know, poodling around in first gear on a bike that makes all its power at the top kind of sucks, and it's genuinely way too much for the street. Now, I will say, I don't think a parallel twin is always the best choice. I love a triple, you know? I'm a big fan of a Triumph Street Triple 765. I think those engines just have a lot of character, a lot of flavor. A Ducati V-twin, also very exciting, very interesting. A parallel twin with a 270 crank nowadays, man, it's just such a plug-and-play engine, you know? Like, this thing, it feels marginally different than a Yamaha MT-07. I'll be completely honest. Obviously, the torque and the power are a little bit different. It makes a whole lot more low-down punch than Yamaha MT-07, like way more, and you really feel that. Despite only being about 100 cc's more than an MT-07's engine, that engine is a 689 cc. This is a 776, so that's a little less than 100. This thing is properly punchy, and that's because of the way they've tuned it too. In this A mode, that is the most aggressive throttle mapping you can do, opening the valves a little bit gives you a whole lot of rush. So honestly, this thing's happy spot is 3,000 to 6,000 RPM. And again, that allows you to play with the gearbox. It allows you to feel the torque of the motor a little bit more, rather than just sitting in first or second gear the entire time like you would on a 600. That's the big difference when you jump on this versus a Gixxer 600. And yeah, the other thing I think that people often talk about is the looks, right? The full-fared looks. And look, I get it, naked bikes aren't for everybody. The wind protection isn't quite the best. The, you know, overall nakedness of it can be not to people's personal tastes. But this bike really gives you the best of both worlds. You know, these new not-so-super sport bikes are comfortable enough to ride for long distance. Like, I could do 5 hours on this bike, absolutely no problem. I would not feel any type of way about putting down 5 hours on this bike. The seat maybe would need to get a different seat. It's a little uncomfortable, but overall, a very capable and easy bike to ride for 5 hours. And it still looks really cool. To most people, you know, even to a lot of sport bike guys, discerning motorcyclists, this is a cool looking bike. And a lot of people are looking for that in their motorcycles. You know, they want something that looks cool, that's agile. And this thing honestly ticks the boxes, man. I think it took us a long time in motorcycling to get over some of the machismo, and, you know, obviously the Euro 5 stuff has kind of kicked the big dog motorcycles down. But look, I just had an S1000RR as a giveaway bike, and I took it out on this road, and I took it on the twisty roads. I'm having a whole heck of a lot more fun on the little Gixxer 8R here than I did on the S1000RR. Honestly, God, I am. The reason for that is because I get to use the damn thing. Look, I get to go wide open. And honestly, I would wager that a competent rider on this bike would embarrass anybody on a 600. It's not because you have a 600 you're just magically fast, you know? That's actually quite the opposite. I've seen lots of guys show up on track on a 600 and they're embarrassingly slow because they didn't take the time to ride a bike like this or a Ninja 400, you know? And you can absolutely, if you're not just doing highway roll racing stuff, you can 100% keep up with your buddies with this thing. Unless your buddies are all lunatics and they're doing 140 miles per hour all the time on the highway, this bike is plenty fast, man. But I get it, because I feel the same way, because I'm about to finish up the ride here, going down this twisty road. Although I kind of want to flip around, to be honest. This is just such a beautiful day. I think I will flip around. Why not? We'll keep the fun going. Why not? You know, I end up riding it, and I'm like, but where's the screaming sound, you know? Where's that, like, rush of power? Where's that proper sport bike thing? I get it. I do, because I miss it too. It doesn't have a throaty, sonorous triple or a hopped up V-twin. It has a relatively pedestrian motor. But you know what? It does the job. It absolutely does the job. And I'll tell you guys a quick story. I was just in California last week, and I made the absolutely idiotic decision, because it was the cheapest one available. I got an EV as a rental car. And I spent the last 4 days driving an EV four-wheeled vehicle. And I gotta tell you, if this is my alternative for motorcycling, I will take this any day of the week. Signed, sealed, and delivered. This is awesome, man. Like, maybe that's just because my frame of reference is so tweaked right now because of those damn EV four-wheel things, and they're just awful. But I mean, we still got them, man. The motorcycles are still here. They're still making super fun ones. This is still super fun. And again, at the end of the day, anything on two wheels is better than some electric crap on four wheels, or truthfully anything on four wheels. Like, two wheels is just the best thing ever, man. So does it compare to a real super sport? Yes and no, right? It depends on what you want out of life. Do you want a track toy? Do you want something that you're actually going to take multiple times a year on track? Yeah, don't get the GSX-8R. That's probably not the best idea. But if you're realistic about what you're actually trying to do with the motorcycle, you know, if you're gonna go out there and ride twisty roads like this, go out with your buddies for long rides, man, bikes like these make a ton of sense. A ton of sense. More so than stuff like the ZX-4RR, because that's also the new not so super sport. Because you got grunt, man. This thing has, honest to God, balls in the mid-range. And it's so interesting because you want to keep it like in third gear everywhere. You really don't want to use second gear. It feels like it really enjoys being in that, you know, extra gear higher. It seems like it really likes that. It's very precise too. So guys, the GSX-8R, it's a cool bike. Is it a direct replacement for 600s? Nah, but you already kind of knew that. But I hope this video helped you understand a little bit more about why Suzuki's building this thing, why it may be a proper replacement for 600 in your stable, and why you should maybe take a second look at bikes like this. And even bikes from yesteryear, man. I think I want to do a whole video comparing this to like a VFR 800 or, you know, bikes of old like that, because I honestly think those bikes hit such a freaking sweet spot. They had characterful engines, they had great feel, they were not as snappy as the GSX-8R, I'll tell you that. A VFR feels way more kind of silly and slow on the side of the tire. This bike is actually quite nimble, even while being on these Dunlops. Even for a fun little street pace like this. Take that safe line on the outside, watch the debris, light her up, baby! Super enjoyable. Got this long sweeping corner here. On the brakes, get the front settled. Another slight sweeper. I think we got that wet section up here. Super fun bike, man. Any bike is fun. Don't overthink it. Get a fun bike. Get a bike you like and enjoy it. That's gonna wrap up my thoughts, boys. I'll catch y'all on the next one. See you later.